Hello and welcome back to another episode of Not the Same, where I bring you true stories of real people sharing their personal testimonies of transformation. I am your host, Rachel Heinberg. Before we get in it today, I'd like to ask my listeners for a favor. Maybe you've been tagging along since the first episode or just tuning in now, but either way, I'd really love to hear some feedback from you. What episodes moved you, inspired you, maybe caused a tear or two. Also, if there's someone specific you think has a story of transformation worth sharing, please let me know that as well. I have a dedicated email address for the podcast. It is notthesame.cfm@gmail.com. No caps, all one word, notthesame.cfm as in Christian Fellowship Ministries. So feel free to send me an email, introduce yourself, and hopefully share with me how this podcast has impacted you. If you are new here, thank you. However you found us, I'm glad you did and hope this will become a new favorite. We are available on all major platforms, so like, subscribe, follow, and above all, share it with somebody. Positive reviews on whatever platform you're using will also be a blessing. Let's get to it. Today, I have a very special guest with me. Cheryl Stellenberg was the very first member of the church here in El Dorado Park back when it all started in 1997. So I'm super excited to hear her story. I've heard very little about her life and only know who she is now, which is a pastor's wife of a leadership church, a mom of 2 successful girls, and also recently a grandma of a beautiful little granddaughter. So Cheryl, I just want to say thank you for agreeing to this, and I'm excited. Go ahead and you can start. Just tell me maybe your background, where you grew up, how you grew up, kind of your family life.
Well, firstly, I want to say thank you for inviting me, Rachel. I'm very happy to be here. One's testimony is always something that you think back and you're just grateful there for what God has done. So firstly, I'm the eldest of 4 children. I grew up in a broken home where my parents were actually married twice and divorced twice.
To each other?
Yes.
Wow.
And by the time my father died, they were back together for 17 years, but not married. My dad was an alcoholic, firstly, to a point where he would get so drunk, he would hit my mom to a pulp. She would often go to work with a blue eye and bruises.
Wow.
However, I think I was the luckiest of the 4 kids because for the longest time, I stayed with my grandmother.
Okay.
So I think since I was a baby, as I remember the story, my grandma fetched me from my other grandma on porch because she just felt like that grandma wasn't good enough to look after me.
So whose parent did you stay with?
My mom.
Your mom's mom?
My mom's mom, yeah. A little background there. My dad's parents were Black and Indian.
Okay.
My mom's parents were Dutch and colored.
Okay.
So my grandmother had a racist thing against that. She never liked my dad because he was very dark. She was just like, I don't want to have anything to do with this child. She's going to be a black child and, all that. But
what year would this have been?
1972.
1972.
Yeah.
So this is in the midst of apartheid.
Yes.
Yeah.
But she fetched me, fell in love with me, and I became her favorite grandchild. So I grew up with her from baby until about grade 8. Okay. So during the week, I would live with her.
Okay.
And then weekends, I would go to my parents.
And how was that?
So I don't think my dad liked me. I've always had daddy issues. I never really had a relationship with him. And he would tell me to my face that my sister is his favorite daughter. At the time, we were just 2. So there's a 3-year gap between me and my sister. But I just must mention that although she stayed with my parents permanently and I with my grand, we were very close.
Okay.
And then 9 years later, my mom had another daughter, and 5 years after, my brother. So my dad would tell me that my sister is his favorite.
To your face?
To my face. But he would say, but you're my most beautiful daughter. So I think that always created that want, because I felt that my sister had a better relationship with my dad. And I think for daughters, it's important to have a good relationship with your dad. And because I didn't have a grandfather, it was just me and my grandma. Also, on my mother's side, she would tell me to my face that it is because of me that she's suffering the way she's suffering. So she had me at 17.
Your mother would say that?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then those years, it was like such a big thing when you fell pregnant out of wedlock. So she had to get married to my dad. As she explains to me, she didn't want her children not to have a father.
Yeah.
But she got married for the wrong motives. And every time he would hit her or hurt her or leave her, she would get frustrated. And my mom was the type that would shout like through the whole weekend. So weekends I would go home, even if my dad wasn't there. And she would make us clean the whole house while she shouts and tell me how it's my fault that she's suffering.
Wow.
I've always had one thing in mind. I'm lucky in the sense that most of the time I was with my grandmother, so that brought a little bit of stability.
Was there love there?
Very much. And I think that brought the foundation that I have now. I grew up with friends that used to go to the Dutch Reformed Church, and they would take me with. Or my grandmother would go to the Ebenezer Church, and I would go with her family. So I had church background. I grew up, what you would say, kind of a successful student. So I did well at school. I was always the teacher's pet. I mean, up until even matric, I would get awards. So I was never a problematic child. However, one thing I always told myself is I have to be successful and stand on my own 2 feet. I don't want to go through what my mom goes. I never want to be married, never want to have kids. I'm going to have degrees. I'm going to go to the States and work on Wall Street. I've had that all planned out. The second thing is I made up my mind. I don't want alcohol in my body, seeing what it did to my family.
Was it because of your father?
Because of my father.
Did your mother drink as well?
No, I think she would try, but then she would become very sick the next day. So, but that was one of the things. I won't touch alcohol. I won't touch cigarettes because my mom smoked. I tried it once and I choked. But as I grew up, as I said, I was never a child that would give my parents unnecessary problems. But as you grow up, you get friends, and now you would see, oh, people are going to clubs. People are going to discos. So in grade 10, I attended my first disco. Then it went into clubs, and my mom used to give me my own key. So I would come and go whatever time I wanted.
You lived with your grand till when?
Till I was in grade 8. After grade 8, I moved to my parents.
Okay. And what was the reason for that?
Because my mom and my dad used to fight a lot. She would run away from home trying not to get beaten. He was a teacher. And this would happen every 3 months when school closes. He would go off and drink, come back and start fights. So when the school closes, she would pack us up. And just this one day, she felt like, no, she wants her eldest daughter with. That's how I started staying with them. So what happens is we would run away. She would get a flat. We would get settled. She would put us in another school. We would stay there for 3 months. And my father would come fetch us. And she would go back to him.
Wow.
And then 3 or 6 months later, same thing happens. Now she must run again, go find a school, find a place to stay for us.
Are all 4 of you siblings the same father?
Same father, yeah.
So between you and your youngest brother is?
I think 18 years. Yeah, I could be his mom.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So high school, it's going everywhere.
I went to CJB. I went in Bosmont, that high school. I went to a school in New Clare. Then I would come back to the schools in Randfontein. And that way I missed being head girl both in primary school and in high school. And that saddened me so much because for me it was, I must be first in my class. I must be first in my grade.
You had set these academic goals for yourself. And now you can't.
Yeah. So I think that caused a lot of bitterness, but I never really thought about it because my grandmother was always there. She always brought the balance. And if I felt like it's becoming too much, I would tell my mom, I'm going to stay with grandma for a few days.
And your mom obviously understood the relationship between you and your father. So she was...
Yeah. My dad, he was present, but he wasn't present. You know, he lived in the same house, but he always did his own thing. So I'm clubbing right through high school.
Did your mom know about this?
Yeah. And I dressed very provocative. And my dad would have a problem with it. And he would say, you can't go out with that. And my mom would shout him and say, you're drunk. You don't have any say in the kids' lives because you're never there. And she would just buy me these clothes. I would walk home from the club 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning. And when we stayed, my dad actually built a brand new house. So middle class. Money-wise, I would say if my parents are together, we never struggled.
Okay.
It's when my mom was by herself that we wouldn't have, you know.
So you would have these times of
abundance and then lack, stability, and then there's instability.
So during this time when you're clubbing, did you get into alcohol, drugs, or anything, or you just were like, no, that's a hard line?
A hard line.
Just the dancing. Was it friends? Was it boys? Was it?
With friends. Obviously, I enjoyed the attention of the boys. As I said, I dressed provocatively because my dad never gave me the attention, right?
For sure.
But I just like the attention. I never liked the relationship. I just want all the boys to like me. That was it. I think for me, it was like, just break every heart that you can, type of thing.
Yeah. Because it validates you in that mentality.
Yeah. My dad never did.
Yes.
And then one thing that happened was I was in matric.
Okay.
My sister was in grade 10. So she took first prize in her grade. I took first prize in my grade. So we both very academically strong. And my dad was the accounting teacher from grade 10 to 12.
At the school you went to?
At the schools we went to.
Okay.
And that day, we each got medals in every subject, plus the trophy for the best in our grade. We got home and my dad said, you could do better, to both of us. And we're like, how do you do better when you're the best in school?
Yeah.
It's like, what do I have to do to get this men's validation? And somehow I just had my goals. I'm going to go to university. I'm going to leave these people. I never gave my parents reason to stress. I did well at school. I behaved. I spoke well to people. And people basically just loved me because they said I'm such a mannered child. But there was always that longing.
For sure. And you said you went to the Dutch Reformed Church. Did you go pretty regular?
Yeah.
Did anything they say ever stick?
So I must say, the pastor's wife there, what she installed in me was how to behave as a lady, tell us how to take care of our skin, about makeup, about how to dress as a lady. And I think that kind of left an impact on me.
Yeah.
Spiritually, I would go to club on a Saturday, come home on a Sunday morning at 3, 4 o'clock, sleep for 2 hours and go teach Sunday school.
Oh, wow.
That was my life.
Yeah.
Right. And nobody ever challenged me about doing things like this and come to church and teach little children. I mean,
from what I understand, a lot of the churches, it's really about works. So as long as you're doing the right thing, then it kind of negates the bad that you do. Never mind about conversion or a changed heart.
And nobody ever challenged me about, did you ever give your life to Jesus? It was never preached to me that there must be a change.
Yes.
If you are going to follow Christ, you're going to have to live like him. So none of the churches I went to preached that. I finished high school, so I started my varsity years in Potch. Even when I was away, I found friends that would club. And we would drive all the way from Potch to Mafikeng for clubs. Anything to be in a club. That's how addicted I was to clubbing.
What drew you? What was the addiction?
I think it was basically just the attention.
Did you ever have any serious relationships or any semi-serious relationships during this time?
I had boys that was saying you were my boyfriend, but no, not serious. Like for me, it was like, okay, yeah, you're my boyfriend, but don't come to my house. I think again, it's that thing like, yeah, I like the attention, but okay, if I have to let you go, I'll let you go. Like when I would break up, it was like, okay, my mom don't want me to see you. I couldn't get that connection. And then right through high school, first and second year of varsity, just clubbing, enjoying the
And academically, how did you do?
Very well. Very well.
So you handled it well. Even though you were clubbing all hours, you could still...
Yeah. So in my first year, I didn't even have to write exams because my semester marks were so high that they felt I didn't have to write exam. I just passed.
Wow.
Yeah. And that was in all my majors. So that kept my parents happy. When I started university, they had no idea. I just told them, I'm going to university. I don't care how you're going to pay for it. You've put me through enough. I've worked hard enough. They used my money that they were supposed to put away for university, right? And probably 3 days before I went, Sanlam phoned my dad and said, oh, we would like to offer your daughter a bursary. I went on a Sanlam bursary for 3 years. And I had a job afterwards.
It's strange because even through all this, you can see God helping you. Even though you have no connection, no relationship to God, it's not like you've prayed for this. It's not like you've asked him for this.
But it's always been like that. And I always say somebody must have been praying for me. Because how does a girl with a cheeky shorts and long boots walk alone at 3 o'clock at night from a club and going home?
Yes, most definitely. It never scared you?
No, I didn't think about these things, Rachel. I'm just having the time of my life.
When we're young, for lack of a better word, we're stupid.
Exactly. So in my second year, Sean's got a cousin and the two of us were very close. She also doesn't drink or smoke, but we love the club. We would dance from the minute we get to the club, have Coke or water the whole night, and we'd be still the last at 4 o'clock in the morning.
Wow.
Dancing. That's demonic.
For you, it became your addiction.
My addiction.
Yeah.
I could go to club on a Friday night, come home Saturday, sleep Saturday, go Saturday night, come home Sunday, and then go Sunday blues, come home Monday and go to work. That's how addicted I was.
Wow.
Then I met Sean through this cousin of his.
Okay.
I was 19. And again, I can say God had a plan for the two of us right from the beginning. So I met him in the club. She introduced us and he danced with me right through the night. And he says, oh, my eyes. I'm like, what are you talking about, my eyes? He says, it was so beautiful. It was attracted him.
That's funny.
So I met him. And the Sunday, the same cousin phones me and says, oh, my cousin likes you. And then she phones him and she's like, my friend likes you.
So she was playing both sides?
Yeah.
Oh,
and
wow.
That Sunday afternoon he came, we hung out. I met all his friends. And ever since then, we were together. That was the September. The November, he told me he's going to marry me.
Up until then, boys to you were very, very superficial.
Yeah.
So did you feel that it was different in the beginning, or you were just like along for the ride?
Along for the ride.
Okay.
Firstly, I was like, he had a car. He can take me to any other club that I want to go to. Now I can have this dude. He can take me to Pink Cadillac in Joburg. He can take me to Stepping Out. That was the thing.
Okay. A gold ticket.
Yeah. And in the meantime, this dude is falling for me. And for some reason, Rachel, I can't tell you when, how, what, but I fell in love with him too. Mm-hmm. He was such a gentleman, but he clubbed.
I cannot picture Sean clubbing. He's such a distinguished gentleman now, you know?
So he likes slow dances. And I thought, oh, this dude is so romantic. I like him. So we met in September. The November, he said to me, he's going to marry me. And I was like, wow. Probably the March after, I was totally in love with him. And then in my third year, I turned 21, we got engaged. Then we were engaged for about a year. And we planned to get married the year after. Then I fell pregnant. And that was the worst. Rachel, I was so disappointed in myself. I can't even tell you how I felt.
Why do you think that was?
I think it was a little bit of everything. Now there's a boy that's got a hold on me.
Okay.
My career's interrupted. My dreams are through the roof. And I disappointed myself and my parents.
This was not in the plan.
That was not in the plan. I didn't even anticipate getting married, but I fell in love with him and we got engaged. But then I was like, I'm not having kids. In case this thing is not working, I'm not putting my kids through what I've been through. And we've never spoke about having kids. It was just such a whirlwind that time. But I was so disappointed, Rachel. Sean's 4 years older than me. So he's at a point of his life that he's done everything. He wants to settle down. I was just getting started. I was 6 weeks pregnant. And he came and he told my parents and my dad was, you have to get married. And we were supposed to get married the end of the next year. So we got married exactly a year before we were supposed to get married. And I was like, these two men are talking about my life here. I'm not ready to get married. I'm just dealing with the fact I've got a little person inside of me. And my dad looked at me and he's like, this man wants to do the right thing. You are going to get married. And because I still craved my father's approval, I'm like, this is where I can make my dad proud.
Wow.
So I agreed to get married, but my dad was so supportive. And I think that's where I started really building a relationship with him. My mom gave me such a hard time before I got married. I used to go to work in the mornings bawling my eyes because she would swear me. She was like, I trapped Sean. He wasn't in love with me.
She's dishing on you everything that was in her mind from your dad.
Yeah. Like, how could I do this to him? He never intended to marry me. Yeah, but my mother gave it to me in those 5 months. So in those 5 months, my dad stepped up.
Wow.
He went with me, helped me choose my wedding gown. He helped me choose my caterers. He sorted out my invitations. He sorted out the venue. He was just so there for me. And I'm like, yes, I finally have what I wanted. I have the approval of my dad and it's fine.
And I wonder on the other side of that, if he was trying to repair mistakes
from the beginning.
You know, they were both seeing it as if they're replaying their lives.
Yes.
How would I do it different? So now your dad's like, oh, let me help. And your mom's like, get out of there.
Yeah. And I must say, he didn't like Sean in the beginning. But at the end of his life, Sean was more his son than I was his daughter.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So then I got married in December 1995. And I had Jamie April 1996. The marriage, it did not go well. That first year was horrible. Rachel, I think I took my stuff and went back home 4 or 5 times.
Wow.
I had a little golf. I would pack all my belongings with my child and go home. And my mother would say, okay, Sean, leave her here for the week and then you come fetch her. And she would tell me, you are married. You're going back home.
Mm-hmm.
I hate this man. I can't live with this man. I need to leave this man.
Because you still had all this baggage.
That's the thing, Rachel. It felt like you ruined it for me. Why did he come into my life? I had so many whys.
And add motherhood on top of it. We've spoken before a little bit. I know it didn't go well for you. You said you didn't enjoy
Not at all.
the beginning.
Why does this person have to be on me the whole time? Freedom. oh, he's cooing over this baby, but he can't give the child food.
Yeah.
She was 3 months old and I had terrible back pain. Don't know what was wrong. Went to the doctor. He said my spine suffered trauma with the birth. And then now I'm blaming her. I'm blaming him. I'm still not happy where I am. My whole life is ruined. I think what got me through that first year was we've always had friends over. And it kind of distracted me from the things that was going on. So every weekend, Friday night, Saturday, the whole day until Sunday morning, then Sunday afternoon, friends over. And it was just a good time. And eventually I learned to be a mother. And I thought to myself, you know what? This child didn't ask to be here. I think that's where I unconsciously let go. And I'm just going to make this child the best version of who she can be. And my whole life started revolving around Jamie. And she was the sweetest little child ever. So that was the whole of 1996. Then 1997 came around. I was just frustrated with Sean because he would work all hours of the night. He worked for Fidelity Cards. I would be sick of worry. Then you hear a truck has been hijacked.
So Fidelity,
cash in transit.
They're the ones that transport
the money. Yeah.
And in South Africa, if any of you are familiar, those get blown up quite often.
So when I met him, he was working for this company. It's very high risk. Now I'm trying to phone him and he wouldn't answer. Then he comes home and it's a fight. I started throwing things at him to a point that one Saturday, I packed my golf again, packed Jamie on top, and I drove to his work. I was going to go make a scene. Luckily, I saw him pass. I turned around, got home, flew out of my car and threw him with a stone, but he got a hold of my hand. He brought my hand down and it hit my knee. I got back into my car and I drove to my parents' house. I am divorcing this man. I can't. A week later, he came and fetched us. And that's how it went on. And then September 1997. And I'm still thinking, I am leaving this man. I don't care who says what. Pastor Greg walks into my living room. And I'm like, white man in my living room, inviting us to his house.
So how did that come about? How did Pastor Greg end up in your living room?
So Sean has this friend. His name was Paul. Was big in the ANC and had all these connections. Just knew everybody. So somehow Pastor Sawyer put him and Pastor Greg in contact with each other. So Pastor Greg asked him, does he have friends? And he said, yeah, what friends do you want of mine? I have bad friends and I have good friends. Pastor Greg says, no, he wants all the friends. In Paul's mind was like, this is a church guy. Let me get some of my decent friends. We used to go now to the Methodist church because Sean was Methodist. But the Methodist church is like we have a party on Saturday night, but Sunday we all holy. So that afternoon, you phone Sean and he says, I've got this white guy. He says you must come to his house. He's going to give you food. It's a pastor. Just come and hear what he wants to say.
You don't know why he was asking for these connections. You just know that this guy connected you for a meal.
Yes.
Okay, because I have heard a little bit about this guy, Paul. And everyone. Yes, he knew everyone.
Yeah.
Pastor Greg has said a few stories about him.
Yeah. So we went to Pastor's house and he introduced him as Greg and Lisa. And so we went and he did a Bible study that night. And that's when I got saved.
So tell me about that, because that's obviously the turning point.
Yeah.
And that's the whole purpose of this. So you guys all come to the house and then all of a sudden it's food and a Bible study.
Yeah. Was it a Bible study or a movie? It was a movie.
Okay.
And this movie convicted me so bad.
Okay.
Like, I cried.
Had you ever heard the gospel until that point?
I always knew, like, if you die, you're going to go to hell if you don't have Jesus. But I was never told, how do I get Jesus? Yeah. I thought I just had Jesus. I never knew I had to say a sinner's prayer and repent because I've always been a good girl. What was eating me up was the fact that I fell pregnant without wedlock. Because even when Sean and I started dating, I said to him, I do not sleep with somebody that I'm not married to.
And was it only after you got engaged?
Yes. Because now you kind of feel like, I got it.
Yeah. So this movie convicted you.
And when I said that sinner's prayer, it felt like a weight came off me. I guess I always knew Jesus was there, but I didn't know he comes into my heart and he forms a personal relationship. That night, it's like the lights went on. There was such a peace over me.
Yeah.
When we got home, I was like, yeah, Lord, I am married for life and you're going to help me do it.
What about Sean? What was his take on it?
He's like, why must I go to another church? I've got my church.
So he didn't have the same experience as you at all?
No. He was just like, why are these people here? They should be selling albums. Why are they doing a church when we have so many churches? And for me, it was just, this is it. And I never looked back. I'm not going to say when I got saved, life started getting better, but I felt like I had a purpose, a proper purpose. not just my daughter, not to just make the marriage work. My relationship with my mom improved. My relationship with my dad improved. My relationship with everybody around me.
Because you changed.
Because I changed.
And that's the difference.
And one day his elder sister and her husband came over and she's like, Cheryl, there's such a beautiful change in you.
Wow.
Other people could see it. At that point, I decided this is where I have to be. This is my church. They were still in Mondio, in the hall. That night when I got saved, I decided no more Methodist church.
Wow.
I would get up on a Sunday morning, I would cook. He would go to Methodist church at 8 o'clock, come back. I would leave at 9:30 and go to church in Mondio. And then in the evening, him and his friends, some of them would join us then for evening service. But for a few months, it would go like that. And Sean just didn't get saved. And then just one Sunday morning, he decided, no, he's coming to church with Jamie and I. And I think that's where his turning point came. Never have the Bible been laid out and brought practically to me the way it was when I got saved. Because I received the Holy Spirit, I had a better understanding and the Holy Spirit just made things clear. I think God always had his hand and his plan for Sean and I.
Mm-hmm.
How can two people that don't drink, don't smoke, but love clubbing meet in a club? The bursary that I had, I was supposed to go work in Cape Town. I became the only student that found a job in Joburg.
God was definitely directing you.
Yeah, and he could have said, but I'm the man, you must come to my church. He could have been stubborn about it.
Did he see the change in you? And maybe that's what drew him over those few months. Because you changed first, right? A lot of times in spouses that get saved, oftentimes it's the one first and then the other. And they watch.
Yeah.
And they think, okay, let's see if this is for real.
For real.
From what you said, it seems like it was quite a change where you're shouting, you're leaving every other time.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden, I'm sure some of that went away. And he's like,
Yeah, because before that, I would still say, okay, can we leave Jamie by my mom and we'll go to the movies or we'll go clubbing, you know?
Yeah.
But after that, it was never, can we go to the movies or go clubbing? You know, it was always my family now. Then I started coming to outreach. And I think there was just such a joy because there genuinely was such a joy and a fulfillment in me, you know. My parents used to come, like when it's Father's Day or Mother's Day. And Jackie used to say to my dad, you've got such a bubbly daughter. And I don't think I've always been bubbly.
And I would definitely describe you as bubbly as well. But obviously, I've only known you recently.
But I've let go of all those reservations and I've realized, as you said, God's always been that. It was never God's plan for me to be this big broker on Wall Street. And Rachel, there's one time when I heard God's voice very, very clear. I was so shocked. I was like, okay, I will never question you again. Although we are saved, our marriages are still going through things because the devil's not happy with what he's seeing, right? And he's trying to break us up so we can just derail the kids or whatever. And Sean and I, we were saved at the time already. I was so mad at him. Out of frustration, I said, God, why did you ever let me meet this man? Why? God said to me in a very loud voice, if you didn't meet this man, you would have never known me.
Wow.
And it just all made sense. When we're out there, when we're successful, when we don't have hardships, we hardly think about God. And that's when I started thinking, yeah, I might have had all the money, all the friends, all the parties, all the glitz and glamour. Then I remembered how empty I was before.
Gain the whole world and lose your soul.
Exactly. Yeah. Before I met Christ, that hole inside of me, I was doing well at school. I was pleasing my parents, but that was still a longing. Yeah. And I always tell people, I said, there's one thing humans need to realize. There's a little space in every human's heart that only God can fill.
Absolutely. There's this old song and it's called A God-Shaped Hole. It's like that. You know, we hear this in testimonies a lot where I was trying to fill this void with this and this and only God can fill it. I like what you said because it doesn't matter how successful you are in the world's eyes.
Yeah.
Still, if you don't have Jesus,
you have nothing.
You don't.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you, here we are way down the road years later. At what point did you and Sean realize that, okay, now I want to be in the ministry? Was it quite soon? Was it years?
Yes, 7 years.
So this was after Ashley.
Yeah.
Which we'll get to now because the woman who said would never have another child, had another child, another beautiful daughter.
Yeah.
And Jamie and Ashley are 7 years apart?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for me I've always seen my husband as, and his friends sees him as an absolute people's person,
okay,
a counselor, a man with such wisdom. I've always seen him like that. And as I said, his friends as well. But he was like, nope, I'm making money. I'm going to go start my own business. And although he got saved, he never wanted to be in the ministry. But I always told him, this is what I feel you should be doing. But I never forced him.
Yeah.
The thing that he appreciated about Pastor Greg was he also never put pressure on him, make him think unnecessarily about it. So what he says is, he started feeling you need to do more for God. Your life matters more. There's more you can do. And then he says, all of a sudden, every single visiting pastor that we would get would hammer on that. I mean, this pastor wouldn't know him, but would deal with what God is dealing with him. He ran. He literally ran for about 5 years.
Wow.
And it's only when Pastor Greg announced he's going to leave.
Yeah. And this was all the way 2004.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When he realized how much Pastor Greg has submitted to the Lord and why can't he?
Wow.
He asked himself if this man could leave his family, come all the way here, because I think what caught Sean was when he walks in the prayer room and he could hear Pastor Greg mention his name before God. That was something that caught him off guard. He was so sad when Pastor Greg's gonna leave.
Yeah.
Sean doesn't show emotions, but that day my husband went and sat in a chair and stared in the roof. It's like, how can I lose my pastor?
Yeah.
And I think that's when he realized, I am supposed to do exactly what my pastor did. I needed Pastor Greg. There's other people that need me.
Absolutely.
So when Pastor Polacco took over, a year later we were out.
So Pastor Polacco sent you guys out. That's great. Yeah. And I know it's been a lot of chapters. We fast forward and now you guys are pastoring Eden Park, which was pioneered by
Pastor Polacco,
which is super cool. You know, I don't know if anyone from there will ever hear this, but it's really cool.
Yeah.
It's cool when God uses the little things.
The detail.
God's so into the big things, but he's so into the tiny things. And you think, why did you even do that? Just for me, just icing on the cake, you know?
Why would we take over the missionaries church that sent us out?
I know. And then that church itself, you have churches out, just a great ministry, even for us here in the South African Fellowship. Longevity, you guys take the cake on that for sure. I mean, you've been since the very, very beginning and you're still going strong. You have 2 beautiful daughters. One daughter's married, and now you have a grandbaby who's so cute. You know, your other daughter helps in the church. So what a blessing to come from, you didn't even live with your parents. You were raised by a grandmother that, you know, never wanted anything to do with marriage or sticking around or motherhood. The whole reason this podcast is called Not the Same is people like you. You are not the same person because God wants you to be
different.
And it's beautiful because whatever we can be on our own is never going to be the best thing.
And there's one thing that I do want to mention, and that is what I find is that a lot of our girls will find success and they would leave the Lord.
Yeah.
And one thing I want to put out there is don't let your blessing become your curse, because although you are blessed with degrees, with a good job, with money, with whatever you have now, it will eventually become in vain if you leave God.
Absolutely.
God is the one that makes it all worth it, not outside Him.
Absolutely.
That's one thing I've learned. I always say, I am because God is.
Yes.
I would not have been if God wasn't at work in my life.
Definitely. Even for me, sometimes we just get in life, we get going, and I stop and I think, what am I doing in Johannesburg, South Africa? Like, I am so privileged and so blessed. And if it wasn't for God,
where would I be?
Why did He choose me to be in the family I was? Why was I privileged to be in this fellowship and to be all over the world? Everything that I can say is a success is only because of
God,
the grace of God. Yeah. And it's amazing to me. And it's so humbling. I'm so thankful that I have this avenue to talk to people, because every time I'm just so encouraged. You don't get tired of hearing about the power of God in someone's life.
Yeah.
What more can we really say? That's just amazing. And I want to say thank you to you again for taking this time and sharing. A lot of people tell me, oh, my testimony is not really that special because I didn't, shoot 50 people. But I think it's still beautiful because we all have our own story. It's going to help somebody because there's somebody out there who's the same situation and going to be like, I need that. That's my whole purpose of getting this out there.
Yeah.
So thanks again, Cheryl. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Yes. I also want to say thank you to everyone listening. Each and every one of you makes what I do worth it. Without a listener, the story can't be heard. If If you enjoyed this episode, please share it. Don't underestimate the power of a transformed life. Lastly, if you are not a Christian, or you were but have turned away, and you want this change for yourself, it's possible. A very familiar scripture, John 3:16, says God sent his only son Jesus to pay the price for our sin. And it starts with a simple prayer. It can be the beginning of your new story. Just acknowledge your sin, recognize Jesus paid for it, and ask him to forgive you, just like Cheryl did, just like we've heard over and over again. And that will be the beginning of your story. Until next time, this is Rachel Heimberg, and you've been listening to Not the Same.